Absolutely. Sounds like you're going to
Okay.
get a bunch
We're
more
gonna we're
people.
gonna get we're gonna get rated from Sarcasm City. For those here that aren't familiar, Sarcasm City is a channel that I participate in the streams with. They cover
Awesome.
all kinds of sports, so I'm there a lot of the times. So yeah, we're gonna get rated with a bunch of viewers soon.
I think you missed
Go ahead.
Giovanni's. Um,
So I'll save this. Actually, no, hold on. Any chance for let's go with this. Then we'll go to
I
the
was
other one.
looking at. That's what I was looking at.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um. I think that there's a chance that they try it, but I have heard that he has work ethic issues. I don't know how true those are, and I'm not gonna go dig
I've
into
heard
like
that
that.
too. I've heard that.
Yes,
So I
since
don't know
college.
specifically who you're talking about, but I've heard Gilbert Arenas say he is amazing as a basketball player. He just does not care or try, and it's clear as day to people who've seen him in any kind of a context.
Yeah, so it's like the other thing too. Go. It's like the Dejounte Murray idea, right? It's like at
Yeah,
some point you look and you're like, okay, so how many times are we gonna see a dude on multiple teams and multiple years and stuff like that. So it's just I think he's interesting. I don't know enough to say yay or nay. I like the idea. I'm warming to the idea of getting another like breaking case of emergency big. I actually
yeah.
said on my channel, I'm like, you know who would be the perfect person for the 15th man on this roster? It'd actually be Kem Birch, right? Like your breaking case of emergency like center. I don't think we want to make a deal with San Antonio anymore, but
Never
like
again.
he would be nice on this roster just in case. So yeah, I'll kind of leave it at that.
Um,
Yeah.
sorry, yeah, real quick on Bobo. What I would say is that like I'm all for giving people even a 17th chance if need be in low leverage situations. So like, does the guy want to come play summer league? I don't know, but if he does, of course give him a shot. Does the guy want to try out for a team in training camp? If he does, of course give him a shot. If the guy wants guaranteed money and guaranteed minutes, no, like that's not something that is warranted.
So
But
thoughts on Christian Wood then?
there we go. There we go.
I'm kidding, by the way.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
so that's what I'm saying. Like Bobo, these kind of decisions for me are all the way like contingent on what they expect from the situation. So like I spoke when I was speaking on the summer league team, Moses Brown. I love giving him a shot in summer league because it means nothing. But you have a guy with a defined skill set who also has a defined set of weaknesses, right? So you know what you're getting with him, but I don't mind giving him a shot in a situation where it doesn't matter if that blows up in our face. Um,
Yes. I
Giovanni,
think
I'll
I'd
leave this for the
lean.
very end, by the way. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I'd lean towards. Jeez, sorry, I just saw that. I think I would
Okay, you're not
lean
familiar
to.
with Peter, but yes.
No, 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 no. It's fine. It's funny. I I'll say, jeez. Um, I would lean towards maybe Mobamba as a third big, over Bol potentially.
Look at these
Um,
conversations, man. Bobo versus Mo Bamba.
Now is United Spurs of America, are they a Tottenham fan?
Yes, these are Spurs fans. So, real quick to everybody
Okay,
who's here because
interesting.
of the raid, if you're here, you're probably not a Raptors fan from Sarcasm City, but you might be a me fan. So, if that's the case, make sure you sub to this channel. Make sure you like this video. And if you appreciate me to any degree, go check out Kenyon's channel as well,
Oh, thank you.
Basketball Rewind. He does great content. Sub to his channel, run his numbers up as well. Trey does Siakam, though. This is a Suns fan. So, in this case, he wants to
This
put
is a
together,
Suns fan.
yes. I'm a
Interesting.
you know what I'm saying? DeAndre Ayton. Let's just get all the buckets. Let's
So
get two teams worth of buckets on one team, but now he's just playing. Shout
okay,
out Jazz.
I was gonna say, Peter, what are you giving me?
So yeah, holler at me if you need a Mavs or a Bulls rep. Yeah, definitely in the case if we need a Bulls rep, it'll be this. It'll be Jacob instead of Murtaza. That's
Hmm.
a fact. Shout out Daniel. Yeah, man, it was always coming. It was always coming. Most knowledgeable about NBA I know. Damn, thank you. I
Nice. There
appreciate
you
that.
go.
Mo Bamba is going to be looking for probably 15 million and making 12 million. What?
I'm
Are
not
we
sure
sure?
about that because he just got cut. So I think right now there's the market. If you look at it, is kind of drying up. I guess Houston still has money. can't remember off the top of my head. They might have 13 million, but the market's kind of drying up, so he might not have an option. He might not have a choice. He might have to take the biannual exception, which wouldn't be from us.
Yeah.
He might be on a minimum, but right now he just got cut, so he may not
He
have.
was eating chicken wings in the playoffs, man. Why should he be getting 15 million?
Hey man, those wings are good and expensive.
I would do the same, but that's the problem, is that I would do the same.
Yeah, so I'll leave it at that. Third big would be interesting. I don't know if Thomas Bryant signed anywhere, but he would be
I
another
think he did. I
interesting.
think I saw that name
Yeah,
come
I
up on the
vaguely
timeline.
remember him
He
signing.
just
So
signed for the Sixers.
yeah, so, okay, there you go. Thanks, Nick Nurse. Who's coaching, by
Oh,
the way, right
true,
now?
true. Hey, connection to both Time to Shine, Summer League, and this. Do you think that quote is a sly dig at Nick? 100%. That's what 22-year-olds do when they get a platform. They take shots at the people they don't like. That's definitely the case.
True. Yeah, it's. I mean, it's. If it is, I mean, it could be. It may not be purposeful entirely, but it could be for sure.
No, but that's the thing. It's not a deep enough of a dig for it to be a big deal, right? If you're
No.
saying, hey, he has a different philosophy in basketball, that's clearly different from the last guy. It couldn't be different from anybody else, right? So you're propping up this in contrast to the last guy. Of course, it's essentially saying you prefer this to what was happening before, which is a dig, so to speak, if you want to look at it. But it also is like it's a sensible enough and like a fair enough conclusion to where like nobody should be offended if like in with that dig.
Now, highlighting this by S could be a dig. I don't know. I don't know his relationship to Nurse, but that could be a dig, because specifically highlighting the ball movement and stuff like that could be a dig.
Yeah, the fact that he cut this quote out, because I'm sure Scotty Barnes had a much longer rant. So
Oh, for
I'm
sure.
sure S maybe has his own issue with Nick Nurse. Does he have a press conference? Is he in the press conferences?
I think so.
Oh, then he probably doesn't like Nick Nurse. That makes sense.
I think so. I think he might have been one of the people that got ice cream recently at the Darko.
Oh, okay. We
He signed for the Heat. Oh, okay.
yes,
Well, you know what?
Bamba to the Sixers.
That is a smart signing for the Heat, because they first of all lost players, but they also struggled with size in the playoffs.
Didn't they play Zeller?
Yeah, that's
Wasn't
how
that the
bad they
backup
were.
center? Yeah.
Like
Get Zeller out of
it
there.
was rough. They at one point against the Denver Nuggets, they had to throw out Kevin Love because they just needed a big body
They
that could
just
get
needed.
rebounds.
That's the thing. If your big lineup in theory is Zeller and Bam, you have a problem, especially
Exactly.
in the finals.
Shouts to Bomba as well. I don't know how much did they get paid for Time to Shine?
I can look that up quickly.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, in the meantime, shout out to a bunch of the people in the chat that are showing love. Shout out Flawless. Shout out Mange. Zeller
On the
gone to
road
the
to 100
Pelicans.
soon.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Excited. I'm excited to get there. Daniel is a Heat fan. So just to get all these allegiances out there. Thomas Bryant got 2 years, 5.3 million.
2 years. Okay.
Five.
All right. So yeah,
that's
it's
the
not the
minimum.
biannual exception. It's
Yeah,
the
no,
minimum,
that's like the
basically.
minimum if you're of a certain experience in the league.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's basically, again, like, you're not looking big money. There's not a lot of money out there anyways, and the Heat are still looking to wheel and deal, because they lost a lot of people in free agency. I mean, it'll be interesting. The East got weaker for a lot of teams, actually, which is why I'm like, well, why? This is another reason. Why do you want to tank? Like, again, Atlanta is reasonably worse today than they were without Collins.
Yeah.
However you feel with
Collins to Rudy Gay is a downgrade. Right.
And they have no way to make that money because they're already over the cap because of Trey.
Yeah. And so, like, that's the thing too. With the East getting worse, not only is it why do you tank, but also tanking is harder. It's fundamentally harder to lose 62 games, which I think is like the goal if you're tanking, if the teams aren't that good. right? You're going to accidentally win games just by being competent. So to like purposely make yourself incompetent or to purposely make yourself so void of talent that you can actually accomplish that is like shooting yourself in the foot if in like the most clear way. Like, there's no other way to frame that. That's why I'm like tanking in the Eastern Conference just doesn't make sense and it's not smart.
Not this year. Maybe in another year, or if you planned it out or something like that.
Or
I heard
if you
2026 maybe.
if you've involuntarily leaned into it, right? Like if you're at a point where like you're close to having that like no talent, or like you're kind of just incompetent because you tried your best but you failed, like then sure, if you're already there, go ahead and do it. But to really just like bottom out from a respectable place, it's a really big bet, and I think it doesn't work a lot of the time.
Well, let's look a different way, right? You have an ownership group who's owned by two media companies, so primarily, which means that they care about the product to somewhat of an extent, you'd say,
Yeah.
that they're going to be putting on their media company to an extent.
That's the thing. Low key, no, because at the end of the day, these games aren't going anywhere else. As long as you love the game, you're gonna watch regardless, right? So of course, like
Yes.
tanking, like to a certain degree, yeah, they'd probably be against it for that reason. But like, sorry, I didn't let you finish your
Oh,
point.
no. I'm just saying, to an extent, they care
Yeah,
because of the moves that they've made in the past. It's like, okay, let's get the play-in revenue, right?
yeah,
Let's get, you know what I mean? And then you hear, okay, Larry Tannenbaum selling at least a sliver of his share. Okay, well, you know what? If you're getting a new minority owner in there, well, guess what? You're probably not going to want to tank, right? And lose playoff revenue or that sort of thing, especially when you also don't own your pick. You don't
yeah,
choose your own destiny, even.
right,
So I keep asking people this, and this is the thing that sucks. Is like, okay, if you traded Siakam, right?
yeah,
I'm gonna use a framework that I saw. It was
mhm.
like for David Roddy and like Tyus Jones and stuff like that.
Damn,
And I was like, okay, yeah. Did you just say damn?
damn,
Yeah, it was a rough one, right? That's not shade to Tyus Jones, but yeah. And my thing is, okay, so you trade him for a bunch of role players, okay, and not elite role players.
Mhm.
At like, how bad do you think that we could be? Because the teams that are already going to tank, right? Like, they're already like Washington's ahead of us, right? Like Washington is ahead of us with the tank. We're not going to bottom out in a
No.
bad draft.
They have Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma. They will shoot themselves out of the games that they're positioned to win.
Could we be
Elite
bottom
tanking.
six? Because I'll tell you right now, Barnes is too prideful to sit down, and OG in a contract year is not sitting.
Oh yes, we have, as of right now, we have two guys heading into contract years that I think are looking at like OG is looking at it like, if I play my cards right in this contract year, I'm looking at like what, 170 million, right? If
Right.
Pascal's looking at it like, if I play my cards right in a contract year, I'm looking at like 200 million, right? You're not
Right
gonna.
now, if he signs an extension and he gets the full max of what he can get today, it's 183.
Yeah.
So, like, to me, I'm just going with the pathway where we got rid of Siakam, blah blah blah. Sure, he was. Let's pretend he was the problem.
Right.
If that happens, in my mind, I think we're bad. We're not bad enough to be bottom six. We probably end up like the Wizards, where we're bottom 8, and that's gonna suck. Because then you're giving away a top 8 pick. You don't get to enjoy the draft. You just
Yeah.
watch bad basketball, and you get
Yep.
nothing out of it.
I mean, who have we ever picked when we're in that range, right? Terrence Ross, Jakob Pertl. I'm trying to think of who else we've ended up with, but like you get, I mean, low end starters slash good bench players, right? You get your,
This year's draft,
yeah,
I look at the worst position to have been in is like the
yeah,
5th or 6th spot in terms of the draft, because it's like
yeah.
you have a bunch of dudes, and it's like, do I really want to take Jarris Walker
I
on
mean,
this team?
honestly, he kind of comes across like a Raptors, kind of like a front office kind of are kind of
Yeah,
a
but
guy.
that's
But I get
scary.
what you mean. Yeah, that's what I know. I get what you mean. Yeah.
like, and it's like at that point, yeah, like maybe you do reach for Grady Dick, or maybe you do say, okay, we'll swing for the fences for Bilal. So, um, I just don't see it, and that's why I'm putting the Supermax. Here's the other thing. Even if he makes All NBA, I mean, let's credit Grange with something. Grange put it out. He said if Siakam doesn't get All NBA first team,
Yeah.
in other words, he had to prove that he was a top 5 in the league, just like he said.
Yeah.
Then he's not going to get a full Supermax. He's not going to get 35%. So I don't know why people are freaking out. In general, by the way, I'm not in favor of giving anyone the Supermax except for maybe 5 players in the league, and I need my team to be set. Because if it's not set, you might get screwed.
Oh, 100%. I think you pay a player the supermax if basically like that player leaving actually just collapses a contender. That's
Mm-hmm.
the specific context in which I look at the supermax. Um, a player like Pascal Siakam in our like, I mean, he's not gonna get the supermax, but if he could, like, let's say he had the exact same season he had last year, and people just voted differently. Like, I wouldn't look at the supermax, especially if you look at our cap situation for the next 3-4 years. I don't think it would do a whole lot for us because the end goal would be to trade him anyways. And even if we extend him, like in my mind, you extend a guy who's 29 this year. Um, by the end of the contract, what he's like 32 or 33. I mean, you
Yep.
don't want to trade him around that time to trade a 32-year-old on an expiring deal. You're not going to get a whole lot back. So the idea of extending Pascal is to trade him within the next 18 months, right? So I'm talking about
Oh, if
during the
you wanted to
season,
trade him, I would
off
say.
season. Yeah, if you want to trade him, like if that is the circumstance that makes the most sense, right? Obviously, keeping him would be ideal, but I think even keeping it for keeping Pascal to make sense, you have to get a bunch of things around him right. You have to get a couple draft picks right. You have to get some mid-level exception signings right. Um, and yeah, that's how I look at it.
Mm-hmm. Sorry,
You're
I'm
reading
just
this comment, right?
yeah, I'm reading some of the comments.
See, but here's the thing, right? The
Mhm.
supermax potential being a nightmare. I don't actually think there's like a big chance of it happening, though. I think there's a tiny chance of him.
I mean, even if it happens, like first of all, you have to pay someone. Like realistically, like the actual CBA, like the new CBA says that
Yeah,
if you don't reach a certain level, you don't get any tax payments. I just said how cheap we are. Okay,
yeah,
so you have to like you have to reach a certain level.
yeah,
Um, the other thing is, as good as Siakam is, the way that for a guy like him, now I'm not saying that you have to really you shouldn't drag it out till now, but in general, there's more sign in trades. Teams that aren't like the big team players, or Houston being one of them actually, but most other teams that are not LA, Houston, and I think the Knicks always try, but they always fail. Um, Brooklyn, you foiled me again. Um, they don't really create cap space to go sign a guy,
yeah.
right? So that's the main thing. So I'm seeing the thing with Siakam and OG in a contract years, they're gonna want volume and touches. Well, here's the thing, right? I look at it this way. You just created a whole bunch of volume that is up for grabs because Fred VanVleet just went. And I know that Siakam moves the ball more than a lot of people give him credit for. He tends to draw in 2 defenders and then kicks it. I don't know why people lumped him in again and again and again with Fred, but they are different players, people. Um, and I just think under a new offensive system where you're not so reliant on like every single person, acting like they are Lowry and Gasol and Ibaka and like 10-year vets in the league,
Yeah, yeah,
like where every single person was like there, like
yeah.
it's just a different type of team now. So I'm not as worried about that. I don't know if you want to go back to some of the earlier comments
I'll just get
from
on. I'll
before.
just like real quick on this. The thing
Mhm.
is based on how people are talking about how we're supposed to play. It doesn't sound like what's gonna dictate who gets touches is necessarily like, I don't know, just preconceived ideas. It seems like the ball's supposed to move quite a bit, right? It seems like what happens on the basketball court is going to dictate who gets the look at the end of the possession, right? So I'm not. I don't think that what like Siakam and OG, if they chuck to their like highest chuck potential, will be enough to like truly hinder Scotty Barnes in a way that's like out of his control. At the end of the day, if Scotty Barnes is hindered, then it becomes a you're not imposing yourself on the game at all, and that's a you problem at that point.
It is a you problem. The other thing that I was saying, I'm just gonna pull up an Excel spreadsheet, um, really quickly because I actually downloaded some data a while ago, and I
Yeah,
looked through usage rates and other things this past year for Pascal and Scotty. First of all, I know in terms of frequency, if I'm not mistaken, Scotty was number 2 a lot of the times. If you there's actually an NBA site, I'll show it to you later,
yeah,
and you can look at all the different like zones in the court per player.
yeah,
And actually, again, one of the people that Pascal passed the most to over the past 2 years has been Scotty Barnes. So I
yeah.
don't really think that those two passing to one another is really the problem. I think it and also like Scotty also passes to Pascal as well. I'm just getting the numbers up right
Okay.
now.
So while you get the numbers up, I'll
Mhm.
quickly go through some of these comments that I think like can really quickly be addressed. Thoughts on Drake? Old news, but I know he was mad annoying to a neutral and the Raptors are hot. In the context of basketball, I like the fact that he's annoying to neutrals and opposing fans. In the context of music, I'm looking for a version of that J Hus song without Drake on it. Um, uh, what should a Rockets fan be concerned about when it comes to FPV? So, Fred Van Vliet, I thought, was ascending as a basketball player for a while. And then Nick Nurse said, hey, guess what, guys? 7-man rotation, 40 minutes a night for our starters. When we go into triple overtime against Miami and guys see 55 minutes, 40 minutes again, 2 nights after, and a product of that was always that somebody was going to fall apart. And I think Fred was the guy who fell apart. I forget exactly what the issue was. I believe it was a hip issue that season. And then I don't know how things went on afterwards, but a hip issue at some point turned into a back issue, at some point turned into another issue. And he's been dealing with a lot of injuries in the last year and a half after that initial injury. During
Mhm.
that time period, I think his efficiency in a lot of ways has fallen off. I don't think he's been the same shooter. I don't think he's been the same defender outside of the context of turnovers. He's still a turnover machine defensively. He finds a way to get the other team to just lose the ball somehow, some way. There's videos out there on Twitter of him forcing 10 turnovers in a game. That's happened. And he'll still be that. But in terms of keeping the other player in front of him, I don't think he does that to the same level. And that's a mobility thing for me. When you pick up these issues, these hip issues, back issues, things like this, hampers your mobility. When you're talking about defending the most athletic players on the court, in point guards, usually, well, not athletic like generally, but in terms of shiftiness and like people who are quick and can change direction quickly, that's a bad thing to have happen. So with that being the case, I think Rockets fans should be concerned about those things on a basketball court. But at the end of the day, if you look at the larger context of where the Rockets are at as a team, you don't have anything to worry about because it doesn't actually matter. um, you paid him a max. You're not going to get max production. You're not going to love what you get out of the contract on the basketball court. But that doesn't matter because the point is he's there to be a grown up. He's there to be the adult in the room. He's there to prevent, I don't know, just the kids from doing stupid kid stuff. That's his purpose there. So he'll fulfill that. At the end of the day, I don't see the Rockets actually like regretting the deal because I don't think they're staking a whole lot in paying him that deal. Uh, I'll let you get back to the point you were building up to before I get to some of the other comments.
I can't remember. I did see Giovanni.
This one?
Oh yes, yeah. So I'll just say really quickly. So in general, actually, what's interesting is that um, a lot of people, in terms of you, if you look at like on and off numbers, with Siakam. So I'm looking right now. So the biggest beneficiary of Siakam going off the court, because a lot of the numbers were quite similar on and off in terms of usage. The person who benefited the most and who's had the biggest difference was Fred VanVleet. His usage went up by 8%. So again, if you shift that over to Barnes. Now, to address this issue, first of all, there's ways to make it work with a different offensive system where there's more ball movement, where there's smart passing, cutting. The other thing
Where
is that
there's
I
high
kind of
pick and rolls.
there's high pick and rolls. I think the other thing is that yes, Jakob needs to be better in terms of in the mid range. I think if we look in at historical data, I think Siakam at least can shoot over 34% most years. Sometimes he gets up to almost 37%. And this includes after Kawhi was gone. So the only person who really needs to learn how to shoot is Barnes. And I don't think that trading Siakam is going to help that because Siakam creates a lot of gravity. If you look back at the Philly series, I have a pretty decent memory, as you can tell. And you look at the end game of the Philly series, there was like 5 shots that I can remember where Siakam would draw and kick to Barnes, and he got free shots. Now, I'm not saying that Barnes needs to stand out by the corner, but what I am saying is that Barnes needs to be able to hit shots either way. That will open up his game. It will make him a better offensive initiator. And it will just make him better overall. And I think going back to the spacing issue, I suggested, and I think that this is what's going to happen because it kind of already happened during this year, is that in crunch time, Pirtle actually didn't really play that much at the very end of the year. It was actually more Koloko that would play with those minutes and with those lineups. And so I think if you stagger Barnes and Siakam with guys like Otto, who people keep forgetting, with Grady, I don't think, like how long did it take Nurse to figure out, oh, if you actually pair Siakam with, the other dude, GTJ on the court, that you get positive production? That took way too long. So I think we have a better bench. I think we have more people that can actually shoot. I think if you, for example, Jalen McDaniels last stint, he shot 30, what was it? 30,
7, I think.
40% on Philly.
Okay, I think he shot 37 in the playoffs. I remember
Yes.
looking at his playoff 3-point shooting and being pleasantly surprised because
Even that's good.
That's what no, but that's where I look for the not the non-shooters, but the shooters that aren't natural shooters. That's where I look for the shooting to just like fall out of the floor. Like, but he did decently in the playoffs too. Obviously, not a huge sample size, not a huge volume of threes, but
yeah,
if you're talking about guys getting shots off of some of our main players, like towards not last year, the season before, towards the end of the year, what Precious Achua was doing as a shooter, you just have to do that because he was hitting his threes. He wasn't like some 3-point demon all of a sudden, but he was hitting his shots as they came to him. And that's all we needed, right? When he stopped doing that and nobody kind of stepped into that void, that's really where like that was a part of where things started to go bad for us. Nobody filled that void. And I look at what he was doing. It's not like Precious Achua was doing something crazy. So it's not the biggest thing for somebody to step into that. Somebody just has to. It's just a matter of it getting done. We drafted a guy that's supposed to be a great 3-point shooter, so I think at the very minimum he should be able to hit threes.
You would hope. You
Yeah.
would certainly hope. We're about to see that in 2 days, so which is exciting
Hey,
to see.
people on the channel, watch along for that game. If you're watching the game and you're watching a summer league game and you want some company, because at the end of the day, it's a summer league game. I will be here live on the channel. There might be some
Awesome.
guests, there might not be, but keep your eyes
But
peeled
you
for
will
that.
be here. This is
I
what
will be
matters.
here nonetheless. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, the other thing is that again, in terms of spacing, like based on the comments that we are hearing from OG's camp, supposedly, it
Yeah.
seems like he doesn't really like if he's handling the ball. How is that really producing enough really, really good positive help for Barnes over what Siakam can provide, considering that he can't really dribble really well. He's
Yeah.
not very good at passing currently. And so unless you imagine him to come out and he's looking like Kyrie as a dribbler
Yeah.
and significantly, because it's not the initial he can attack closeouts. Even NBA University, someone asked today, their Twitter account. They're like, "Well, tell me about OG," and they're like, "Could he be if you look on Twitter, you'll find this." They're like, "Could you be talk thoughts on OG being in a bigger role, and they're like, I feel troubled by it, right?
That's
Um,
funny.
and they're basically like, he can attack, close out, he can shoot the three, but anything else they're worried about. And like, this is the thing. That doesn't mean he's a bad player at all, right? It just means that he's not
It
necessarily.
means he should have a defined role if things are like stay as is.
Yes, and so I agree with you, Giovanni. By the way, in terms of the other part, I don't know if OKC is willing to do that or not. I would love to do that. I would be more than happy to do that.
Um,
But yeah.
Sorry, quickly, while we're on the
Mhm.
topic of OG, I do look forward to eventually getting Two Bucks One on the channel because I talked to him a little bit about OG. He is a self proclaimed OG
Oh,
stan,
for a
and
second,
I
I thought
heard
you meant Grady.
oh, no, no. See, this is the thing. When I heard Two Box One, I was like, is this a Grady Dick joke? But apparently it's not. But yeah, no, he he provided, I think, some pretty compelling points for OG from the perspective of somebody who
Mhm.
um is a self-proclaimed OG stan. So I think this conversation is definitely lacking that like point of view, and I look forward to eventually getting that. But
Yeah,
that
for
being
sure.
said, yeah, like that's the thing. Like you
Look,
have NBA
look, look.
University slandering him on Twitter.
Yeah, look. I think
My
OG is
lord.
phenomenal. Like, he really is a good player. It's just I don't know. Again, players should want more for themselves. I just don't know if okay. OG stands. Sorry if I is not
No,
slandering
no,
you,
is
two box one, but
no, no, no.
OG
He, yeah.
stands see him the way that Jalen Brown is the way that people imagine OG is.
Okay.
Right? I think that that's fair.
Are we talking about both guys have like the potential to dribble the ball
Yeah,
off
I'm
their
not
own
talking
foot
about
at
Donda
any given
Academy
moment?
and stuff like that, right?
Got it.
Like,
Got it.
so I know, but I'm not even talking about like the lack of dribbling or anything like that. I'm saying like they think that OG is him. He is not him though, and they're slightly. First of all, they're different players in terms of how they initiate offense and stuff like that. Um, I think Jalen Brown has a way better pull-up game for all of his dribbling problems and stuff like that. OG, I think, is a much better defender, but he has a lower offensive load. I think what's his name has the offensive load of like above 30, so it's like getting close to like Luka territory. Surprisingly, it's like that. It's basically two dudes handle the ball. If you
And
really
Grant
watch.
Williams sits in the corner. That's how that team operates.
Yes, yes. So it'll be interesting because like the only dude who was like, "Yo, guys, can you pass the ball a bit?" was the dude that they just traded in Marcus Smart. So I'm very curious how this season goes. But yeah, I just think like OG has a lot of opportunities and he doesn't always either capitalize on it because of the way he moves and his athletic fluidity, which again, at age 26, he will be 26 in less than 2 weeks. It's kind of hard to change. So I think that if he was willing to accept a number 3 role, I'm not asking him. I don't think he should be fourth, fifth in an offense. I want him to be in the Ron Artest role on the Lakers championship team. Is that so bad to ask for? I don't personally think so. I got yelled at the other day for saying that they were like, he's better than Ron Artest. I'm like, Ron Artest is a Hall of Famer. I'm like, how is that slanderous to say he's Ron Artest? He's a Hall of Famer who was like Defensive Player of the Year and like an All-Star once, right? Like that's pretty good.
It's not slanderous as a comp, but also even like you're talking about a role, you're not even talking about a player, right? So it's like you're not even suggesting that he couldn't surpass, which like is potential that could like probably should be acknowledged. But the point isn't a cap. The point is a role, which
I
I
mean,
definitely get.
even trying to say he can surpass Ron Artest, that's big praise. He's a Hall of Fame player. Like,
So,
so,
but this is the thing, like, and this is how I looked at it. Like, I've described OG as like, there's a role that's available for him that he could like fulfill on like God level. Like, he's a God tier, that kind of a player. And like, the thing with that role is obviously the team going far is contingent upon the more important parts of the team and like how those players do their job. So, like, it's not like Ron Artest is going to be the guy who gets the chip, but he's the guy who can facilitate championship caliber basketball if the other pieces, the other more important pieces are on the court. I look at OG the same way. Is like if you have a really, really solid, if you have a Kawhi, so to speak, and then you have the number two option, OG's then gonna like make sure that team functions at a very high level based on what he does. So
I'm gonna send you. I'm gonna send you his advanced metrics. Mikal Bridges versus OG Anunoby.
we're
I
getting
said it in the stream
yeah,
yard,
yeah, I got it.
and so you can take a look. And
I'll see
if
if
you
this
feel,
is. So you want me to go to the advanced tab, right?
actually, yeah. So if
It
you scroll
opens.
down on it,
It open. Oh, okay, okay, okay.
it'll have the stuff there. So I'm giving you that's Mikal Bridges. This is OG. This is why I say he's not Mikal Bridges. Also, just like the eye test will tell you that as well. But
Yeah, and also the thing with Mikal Bridges is that he, while on Phoenix, had opportunities to play in a certain role because players would get hurt around him, right? And
yep,
he performed differently when given that. He performed differently when he had that opportunity. So
yeah,
yeah, I mean
but
that's
OG's had.
definitely. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, but
Go ahead.
OG's had that opportunity as well,
Yep.
and he hasn't really like he's performed decently, but he hasn't performed Mikal level in terms of his offense.
Yeah.
Like I said, without Pascal and without Freddie this year, which they didn't miss, like not a sizable amount of games, but they missed, some games.
Right.
The 3-point shooting dipped down to 26%. That's not world beating numbers. And yet, so if you look at the crafted scores for OG on defense, you see versus Mikal's is 65, OG's is 85.
Yeah.
Or 85th percentile for the combined metric score. OG on offense is 57th percentile versus Mikal. I just closed it, but it was a lot more green than that. It was closer to, I believe, the 80th or 85th percentile. And you see it, just the way he moves, the way he dribbles, his efficiency. And to be fair, that Brooklyn squad with Ben Simmons wasn't a world-beating squad. It was meaningfully worse than it
No,
was than that.
I think Cam Johnson is respectable, and like the
Oh
funny
yeah,
thing
for
about
sure.
that Brooklyn team is like I think that team was like very Raptorsy in the sheer amount of just like 6'9" forwards.
Yes.
Um, so like
84th percentile, by the way.
yeah,
But yeah, sorry, you were saying. No, yeah, I mean, and I'm not saying Brooklyn was like trash or something like that, but it's just there's yeah, and don't worry, 201. I'm not calling you out specifically, but I'm just saying in general, like there's times when they did try with OG. I just like my dream has always been I would love to see the three quote unquote amigos together and just try it for a year. That's all. But like I don't know.
wait, the three amigos are Scotty, Pascal, and OG.
That would be my dream. I would love to see that. Yeah. I just don't
Okay,
know
no, I
if
mean,
they
it
want to
doesn't
do
seem
that.
like we have much of a choice going forward. I think that's going to happen regardless.
That's true. Um,
So we're gonna get that.
I'm gonna head out fairly soon. By the way,
Yes. No, go ahead.
um,
We're just at the end of it. Honestly, like um the raid happened and we have a lot of viewership and we had some pretty great engagement. So that's definitely appreciated. For the 19 people that are in here, thank you for staying here. First of all, make sure you're pressing the like button, make sure you're subbing to the channel. Any comments you leave, these are all things that really help the channel grow. That type of engagement prompts the YouTube's algorithm to push it out to more viewers, and that's how channels grow. So make sure you do that for me and my channel. Make sure you do that for Kenyon's channel at Basketball Rewind. I'm going to tag his channel in the title and in the
I appreciate
bio.
it.
So there should be a direct link. You can click that, go right to his channel when that's done, and subscribe to it as well. If you enjoy this conversation, two people are involved in the conversation. So make sure you guys get that done. I'm going to wrap up here. This has been 2 hours. Oh, no. Like Stone Cold's music just hit and somebody just ran to the ring. We'll keep it sweet because I guess Kenyon does have to leave. Want to
Of
welcome
course.
everybody to the channel.
Hello,
Toolbox
hello.
One.
Hey,
How's
19
everyone
people
doing?
are in here. If you guys are going to tune into streams going forward, these are some of the people that you'll probably see
I
here
just
and
had to
there.
come real quick. Say if I'm gonna watch Fred VanVleet chuck for 82 games, anyways, just let my man OG cook for a little while. Just let him do it. I'd rather watch that.
Equal
That's all I'm saying.
opportunity chucking. Equal opportunity
Exactly.
chucking.
See who can chuck better.
Yes, yes. So I think with Fred gone, he'll have more opportunities to shoot for.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No, I
So
like
yeah.
the three amigos as well. I think it'll be fun. Honestly, at this point, I'm just so hyped for Summer League. I don't even care. Like all of the drama, all the rumors, like it's fun to speculate, but until Summer League is over, I'm just gonna let it shake out how it's going to, and it's the dick show now. That's
So,
it.
can I ask you
Absolutely.
a question, Tool?
Yeah.
Are you
Tool is just
surprised?
hilarious. It's just a
Yeah,
hilarious
sorry, I didn't
thing to
mean it
call
like
somebody.
that.
No,
No, it's all
I
good, man.
know, but go ahead.
It's in your name, so you know.
It is. It is. Yeah.
So is it okay? Has there ever been a reaction to a Toronto sports star leaving the city like there was for Fred VanVleet? Ever? Any sport? Because I can't think of it. It was like
Like,
seeing
you mean like
Prince go.
specifically like the ire, like how kind
Yeah,
of
with the media.
Like it's
yeah.
specifically the like thank God he's gone kind of a
No,
thing.
no, no. Like I'm saying specifically the media that was like acting like, oh my goodness, we need to now blow up the team, and like we lost like a franchise like legend and stuff like that, and we're woe is me.
Ironically, I don't think the media acted that way when Kawhi left. Like I think there
This is
was
what I'm
some run it
saying.
back
Oh,
vibes, which
I
is
mean,
Even
funny.
when Kyle
really,
left, even when
yeah, it
Kyle
really
left,
does feel like he was like the media's darling. Like they
Oh,
loved
100%.
him. They loved
100%.
him. And I mean, I get it because he gives, typically speaking, much more thoughtful explanations to why he feels the way he does. But at the end of the day, a lot of what he said was it's just that. He's just how he feels, which is cool. He's allowed to do that. He's
oh,
entitled to
for
do that.
sure. But no
When it
one
comes to
died.
Toronto, no, it's true. And like,
it's
I mean,
it's
I'm
like
happy for
literally
him.
like
Like, it is a win-win for me, man. He's getting paid, and I don't have to watch him chuck on my team anymore. You know what I mean? Like, I'm chilling.
I've just
Um,
never seen that before where like literally they're act like I've seen actual media members say I'm in mourning.
oh my
Okay.
god,
And
really?
I'm yes.
Yo,
I'm
what,
not like I'm not gonna say names in it,
bro?
but
Okay,
That
it's
person
like
I'm
needs
this
to
is
be
on
called out,
Twitter.
whoever they
So
are.
it is
yo.
You don't
public.
have to do it,
Okay,
but like
You
that's
know,
absurd.
okay.
yeah.
I'm in
So
Edmonton. I'm an Oilers fan. Okay, so I've been an Oilers fan since I was like 3. I have watched like the decade of darkness for the Oilers. Like even during that, like there's never any era or point in time. I think if McDavid left the Oilers, you would have you would have this kind of reaction where everyone would be like, "No, like what are we doing?" It'd be
sure,
like if
sure.
Matthews doesn't sign an extension with the Leafs. You know what I mean? Like then I
I'm
think
not a
you would
Leafs
see a
fan,
similar
by the
reaction.
way, because
That's
I
okay.
was born in Winnipeg and I lost my team midway through my
Oh,
life. So
I'm
yeah.
so
Damn.
sorry that you
Yeah.
were born in Winnipeg. I feel for you.
That's
No,
hilarious.
I'm joking.
I've
That's
nothing.
hilarious.
I've no other choice but to be somewhat nice. So,
Bro, I'm in
because
Edmonton. I can't, I'm like one step above Winnipeg, and that's not really saying much of
fair,
anything. So
fair enough.
Canadian cities content people, welcome to Toronto
yeah.
Hoop Talk.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
But no, you're right. It's been very odd. It's been very odd to see. And you've also haven't had, like, conversely, a single teammate or really anyone show up to like say the same shit. Like there's been no reactionary from anyone where they're like, yeah, like
Yeah.
this
Well,
this is
even his
terrible for us. Where's
initial.
Fred, man? Like we're gonna be so much worse. Like this is gonna be terrible for everyone. Like no one. There's no sentiment. It's just been like radio silence from almost everyone.
Well,
Like
even his initial reaction, like not like the like as Giovanni said, his goodbye or whatever, but
yeah,
his
yeah,
initial reaction was the dice emoji, quote tweeting "bet on yourself," and then he said
yeah.
again, "Peace,"
Yeah, it's
and
like
I'm like,
he's
cool.
like an AI who's just like figured out he's got a slogan and that
Yes,
just all he has to post on any of his social media. He's like, yeah, put a dice and then insert random quote that fits the moment at any
this is
given time.
this is actually the best thing that has ever happened to him from a marketing standpoint because he can just be like, "I won
Yo,
Yeah,
I literally bet on
he bet
myself
on
and I
himself.
literally cashed out
twice,
because
Yeah,
the
hundred
twice,
contract
percent,
that I got
twice."
isn't a sensible deal.
100%.
It's a you hit the jackpot kind of a deal. He literally won
Uh-huh.
a bet in free agency.
People,
So,
stay
yeah,
tuned. Subscribe to this channel because in the future, you will see the premiere of the Fred VanVleet documentary coming
Ah,
to your couch soon.
hell
We're
yeah.
doing a watch
I'd
along
love
on
to
this
hear
channel. Yeah. No.
it. No, it's wild, man. Like I'll always appreciate Fred for the chip, for the player he was during that time. I just last year I think left a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths, and like the drama that started to surround the team. It's just like, man, I like halfway through the season I kind of checked out. Like as someone who has religiously watched almost every game for the past like decade, this was like one of the first seasons where I was like, man, like even the Tampa games were kind of fun to watch because like we knew what was going on, but like last year it just felt so, I don't know, there was like no fun in watching any of the
It was
games or
a
even the
terrible.
content really.
Yes, it was a terrible time to
Yeah.
start a YouTube channel to talk about the team. It was actually so
Hey,
bad. I just
Nah,
didn't
some of
want
us
to
had
do
to
it.
do it.
it was perfect because now we got the Dick Show forever
Yeah, absolutely.
locked in.
I think what I suggest to people is when it gets that bad, what I did is I watched it in 3 to 5 game increments. I
Yeah.
don't look anywhere past that. I'm like, what is the record going to be in 5 games? And that's it. You know, are we going to be 1-4? Are we going to be 5-1? Or sorry, 5-0? You know,
Yeah.
and just that. You can't look further ahead because otherwise it gets rough. It gets rough.
No,
But yeah,
you gotta figure out a way to not take it too serious. And I think that's like I mean, it's the Toronto fan base, man. Whether it's the Leafs, you know, they're rabid. They love their sports, and like I love that.
don't
I
get
mean,
me
I'm an
started on
Oilers
Leafs
fan.
fans.
It's the same thing for me with the Oilers. Like, and that was the saving grace for me last year with the Raptors. Is like, well, the Oilers were popping off for the last few years, where like it's actually an exciting team. So even when the Raptors are sucking, at least I had the Oilers, which
Yeah.
is just like what a sentence. God. Oh God.
That's what you needed. Everybody had to have a
Yeah.
coping mechanism. My coping mechanism was my NFL team for a good little bit. Everybody needs it.
Yes.
100%.
I think you have one more thing, and then I'm going to go. You have Giovanni saying, are they
Which
gonna?
one?
Yes, that one, which is I guess joined with the next one, which is are they gonna let Scotty? So I
I
don't.
don't
Do
think
you guys want to go?
I don't
Uh,
think Schroeder's
It's
starting.
your channel, so yeah.
I mean, no, it's free for all. This is equal opportunity chucking callback.
That's right. Bet on yourself.
What was I gonna say? No, Schroeder starting, that's trade dependent. If a trade doesn't happen, I have a hard time seeing it's him starting. I don't think Gary Trent would resign, which we still don't know what he resigned for. He might have resigned for bench money, and maybe Schroeder is starting.
I've heard that like it's almost a done deal, basically.
I mean, but like it was
You know,
announced
you know
as a
how
done
long is
deal,
it?
and
Is
then
it
the
the
best thing.
max length
Come
extension?
on, you know this front
Yeah.
office takes forever.
I
Like,
But that's
know.
what I'm saying. Oh,
like
guys,
it took us 4 months for a coaching search, and at one point, like it was like people were trying to talk themselves into the Steve Nash, and I was like, we waited this
JJ
long for a dude
Redick,
that's on TikTok.
JJ Redick.
Yeah, JJ Redick.
And that's another thing. It's like you're gonna wait 2 months for a dude who's literally on podcasts. Like, there's no reason. If it was
He
that
does
dude, like there was
this.
no reason for us to
Yo,
wait.
let's hide. We got our new coach. He's
There's
right
no,
there.
yeah,
He's
yeah,
right there.
exactly.
He's
He does this.
There's no shade against that, but it's like it shouldn't take you 2 months. Like the dude's not doing anything. If it's a guy in the playoffs, fair enough, right?
yeah.
But like, you know, okay, fine, he's coaching, right? Like it was Chris Quinn or whatever. I understand that, but if it's a dude on a podcast, like, or a guy making TikToks with his children, like you could hire that dude like tomorrow. There's no like.
Here's
No,
the
yeah.
thing,
There's
right?
no shortage of that. Like,
We were going
Yeah.
back and forth to Italy. We interviewed the guy in real life, and then we interviewed him on Zoom. And I don't know why both had to happen because if Zoom
remember, it
was
was Skype.
acceptable,
It was Skype,
Oh,
Skype.
Skype. They
which
weren't even
told you
using the modern
everything because it was
technology.
like
Yeah.
Yes.
they told him they're
We're
like
back in 06, baby.
like okay, maybe
It-
that was what it was. It's like okay, this dude can't handle Zoom,
So
so
this
you
is
know
the
what?
thing. If Skype was acceptable, why did you have to see him in person in the first place? Then let's forget the fact that he was actively mid-season, and apparently they didn't hire him because eventually, like, he made it to the finals, and that would have dragged on past the draft. So that just was like a timing thing that wasn't acceptable. And I don't buy that because that's just so insane because you couldn't see that in the first place. So I mean, that whole thing was wild. But like my thing with the Gary Trent extension is that it was announced that it's happening. So I've never seen this before where a deal is like by a credible source is said to have happened and then it doesn't get announced. Guys, I set up on StreamYard, I set up a stream that's supposed to happen whenever the numbers drop, and that was like I set it up
What do you
on
have
Friday night.
It's
Yeah,
not
and I
going to be a
keep pushing it.
countdown, but a
I
count
keep
up.
pushing it. No, I keep pushing it. I set it for the next day because I figured, oh, the numbers will come out, and then that day
Day
goes around.
50.
Yes, exactly. I should
Summer
put that
League
on the
Game
thumbnail.
6.
I
Oh,
should
shit,
put that
still
on the
hasn't signed.
Honestly, though, it might be after Summer League. I mean, even just like there's
I
just
think that's.
anyways,
I
there's
think
a
it's the
whole-
break in case of emergency. Break the.
We're breaking 'em.
numbers. Yeah, for real.
Jeez. So yeah, I think the thing is like Gary Trent is it's gonna be a done deal. So I think he'll be done. I think that's not the issue. We're talking about Schroeder. I don't think that there's. I know some people freaked out. They're like, oh my goodness, but I think Jack Armstrong and Matt Devlin were on the Bob McCowan show. Hope he's okay with the latest news.
What
But
happened?
they
I'm
were
not
with his
familiar.
co-host, and he said, no, that's okay. He said that, well, both of them said the Raptors feel comfortable with the ball mainly in Scotty's hands. So I think one way or another, which is probably the correct choice, you're going to see what this guy has in year 3. And to be honest, he's one of the only people in his class that you don't really know what he is, for better or for worse. And so it's going to be very, very interesting to see that.
Yeah, I agree. We're hitting a point where we need to figure out what he excels in, because we know he's good at a whole lot of things, but can he be excellent at a few different things to like really bring it to the next level? That's what we need to find out for sure this year, because that's going to dictate a lot about how the team plays too. Because we have no true point guard, no matter how you look at it. Schroeder's I'm sorry, he's not starting. It's not going to happen. He might go for another 6-man of the year campaign. If he does that, awesome. Like I'll be his biggest fan. He's not starting. I think we're going to see the ball in Pascal and Scotty's hands a lot, like a lot, and we're going to go from there.
And that's another reason why you probably can't just turn the ball over to Scotty and just say trade Pascal, because it's like you don't know what you have. And if you bet wrong, and then the other thing too is that you're losing essentially a borderline All-NBA guy. And then you're hoping, you said the package, you said it's not even going to be AJ Griffin, it's going to be DeAndre Hunter and like
Jalen Johnson and picks is apparently
great, awesome. And so it's like, which I don't even know if that the framework, I'd have to play around with Fanspo or whatever, but say that framework works. All right.
Yeah.
That is still rough, because it's like, I don't know if Jalen Johnson is going to be I don't see him as an All-NBA player based on what I've seen so far. So you're hoping that you like, essentially what you're trying to do is in a Pascal deal, you're hoping that you can at least get as many cracks at the can to get an All-NBA guy to then pair with Scotty, because you sent out the All-NBA dude. So
yeah, no, it's the same like kind of idea with like, I mean, you can trade OG for first round picks. That first round pick could be anything. It could even be OG. It's like, well, you have a known quantity already. Yeah, like it could be Kawhi. Like who? Yeah, sure. We can speculate all we want. Like, but
that's
you
why
know what you have with certain players.
Exactly. That's why the Portland deal, if you were going to move Siakam, made the most sense, but it would have only made the most sense if you traded him to Portland and got Sharp. I don't care about Simons, but it's like, I want Sharp and Scoop, because I want the highest chance of one of those two dudes working out, not just one.
Yeah.
Both.
And from their side, I understand why they'd say no. Right? Like,
they're like, I don't want to pay
what direction you want to take. Yeah, exactly. Like I get it. And just to go back to the coach thing for just one quick second, it's so funny to me, like the sequence of events. It honestly sounds like somebody typed up like a prompt in ChatGPT for like the most insane, out of context like coaching search in history. And ChatGPT's like, I got you. I have the script. It's written. And then they just like slowly drip fed it to the Toronto Raptors subreddit. And they're like, oh yeah, JJ Redick is involved.
Like
oh yeah, Steve Nash. It's like,
Wait,
We
last
got
minute.
podcasters, we got Skype, we got Italy, and then I saw this comment, right? Only reason why JJ Redick came to interview as a coach was to leak info to the media. Can you imagine if he did this for content, right? So he does the
He's like
interview,
that
and then
desperate.
he leaves, and he does like a reaction to the
He's like,
interview.
yo, so I
like,
just left.
Yo, so 2 hours of just explaining what happened in the interview.
He's got the
That's the
sweet
only thing.
clickbait thumbnail.
Exactly.
You would
That's the
not
only
believe
thing
what
that
me
kind
and
of made
Messiah
it
talked about today.
Exactly. And
It'll
it's
blow
like,
your mind.
and you saw in the open gym thing, and this is kind of like shade towards Nurse, clearly, in my opinion, where it's like, okay, well, what was the interview process? It's like, okay, so you're gonna practice doing a press conference, like a fake press, like it was like,
All right, this is your
what in
practice
the
run.
world?
Get in there.
And then they had, what is his name? The Paul Jones as one of the people, and they had like fake questions and stuff like that. It was anyways.
It's
I'm
so
out. I'm out.
goofy, man. I
It's
love
been
it.
fun with you guys.
Yeah.
Take care.
Cheers, man. It's nice
been
talking.
real. It's been real. Thank you, Kenyon. Again, everybody that's here, make sure you check out his channel at Basketball Rewind. He does great work. Support him like you support me. Yeah. This has been interesting. Did you watch much of what we did before you got here?
Yeah, I was watching. I had some shit to do though, so I was like eating whatever.
No,
So I didn't want to
figured.
like hop on.
What I was gonna say was, did you have any thoughts you wanted to get out? Because like I've been here for like 2.5 hours now, so I'm just about wrapped up. But if you have any thoughts,
I don't want to
get
keep
off
you.
your
If you want to go. No, man. Like I said, I'm at the point now where I'm not gonna take anything too serious moving forward. I'm just, like I said, it's the Dick Show. I'm ready for Summer League. It's gonna be fun. The way things shake out, or the way they shake out, on like the Pascal Atlanta stuff, there's almost nothing from Atlanta that I'd want in a Pascal trade. Like,
Same.
if it's centered around DeJounte Murray, that is just nah, I'm good. Like, it shores up our guard position, and we have a surplus of forwards, but he's not good enough, in my opinion, to come the other way in a Pascal trade. It's not enough. So I mean, unless they're gonna give us a shit ton of picks, but even then, like, I don't really want picks either that aren't for next year or the year after. Like, we are already in the process of our timeline being within the next 3-4 years, and you can't draft a guy in 2 years and expect him to like meaningfully contribute unless he's, a first overall pick, which ideally we're not using.
And even if he is, he still might be like Anthony Bennett or like Andrew Wiggins or something where like it's not really something you love getting first overall. But yeah, so like I think I mentioned this earlier with Atlanta's picks. You're getting one of two things. You're either getting picks of a team that has Trae Young and Pascal Siakam, so like picks in the 20s, or you're getting picks in 4 to 5 years that just frankly don't matter to us right now and don't help anything. So I don't love the picks. I don't even necessarily love the prospects, but if you're also just gonna not put AJ Griffin on the table, like what are we doing?
No,
and
the only one that's kind of interesting is like Buffkin, and even that is not that interesting, right?
And he
like,
just signed a deal, so he can't be traded.
Exactly.
And like the thing with Buffkin, right? As awesome, or not even awesome's not the right word. As cool as he might be, we passed on him, right? So what does that say about how we look at him? And the thing with DeJounte is like this came up as well. We're gonna have to pay him next summer. And he's going to probably demand a decent amount of money. He's a player that like I like what he does, but I don't love what he does for us as a team.
No.
So I don't really
it doesn't
love
move
that.
the needle enough. Not
Exactly.
in exchange for Pascal. It's a lateral move at best.
Like, and then Gio says flip DeJounte Murray to the Wizards for Coulibaly and Tyus Jones. Would the Wizards even be down for that? I don't think DeJounte does, and like an expiring DeJounte does nothing for the Wizards.
Even if they were, I don't think they would do it. For one, like, I don't think it would happen. And even then, we're a worse team. So unless you want to get worse, I don't think flipping DeJounte for Coulibaly and Tyus Jones makes us better. Like, I almost guaranteed does not make us better. I don't think they would do that. I don't think it's realistic. Yeah, I don't think they would. I don't see where that happens.
What is paying DeJounte Murray next summer do for that team?
Well, if you're gonna pay one of DeJounte or Pascal, give me Pascal 10 times out of 10. Like, and the last thing I'll touch on before I let you leave, I know you've been here for a minute now at this point, is if Pascal decides to bet on himself and he wants to go for all NBA so he can get a super max,
yeah,
that is good for us. in the regard that means he is going to be playing out of his mind. And if our goal is to be competing and have this team mesh and actually go somewhere, and he's playing that well, good things are probably happening for us from the perspective of wanting to watch a team win games. Do I like the prospect of having to give him 35% of our cap space? No. But
Okay, so I agree in terms of like what it does for us on the basketball court and wanting to watch like a team win basketball games. What I would say is that if he bets on himself for the Supermax, doesn't sign an extension, balls out this year, I just think there's a pretty realistic chance he gets to free agency and is like, let me see what's out there, and he might find
yeah,
something he likes, right? So it's just something like that where
yep,
Fred Van Vliet essentially bet on himself to let's see what happens in free agency, and he struck gold. He like the
yep,
circumstances lined up perfectly
yep,
for some amazing shit to happen, right? Kyle Lowry got to free agency, and he was in a weird situation where the organization did DeMar so dirty, so to speak, that they wanted to give Kyle Lowry whatever the fuck he wanted. So
yep,
he was in a situation where like we weren't going to trade him to the highest bidder. We were going to get whatever we wanted. So like we were going to get whatever we could get. So we
yeah,
were in a
yeah.
situation where a couple players have gone to free agency in the last few years, and we've got Precious Achua back for it. So I just look at the Pascal Siakam situation. If he balls out to supermax levels, and we say, "Hey, here, take the supermax," and then he's like, what's this other team saying? I just could see it going bad. So like in that regard,
That's
the
true.
thing is like that's not even the worst thing in the world, so to speak, because it's not like Pascal Siakam staying all of a sudden puts us on a clear path to contention either, right? So
No,
like it's not like you're talking about two situations where one is just the perfect situation. The reality is it doesn't matter what we do if we don't figure out how to draft well, which is seemingly our issue, right? We haven't
yeah.
drafted well in a good little minute now. Um,
Well, and
even
you
not
and
a
I touched on it too, right? Like,
yeah.
even as far back as like 5 years ago, like our development was just it was so much better. Like, think back to the bench mob. You know what I mean? Like, fast forward to now, all of them play meaningful minutes, contribute in meaningful ways, and that was like our bench. Obviously, they weren't as good back then, but they were still showing promise and actually developing properly into players that could contribute. And like you have to have that if you want to be a good team. It's the same in all sports nowadays. If you're in a sport that has a salary cap, you need contributions from guys that aren't your superstars. It's how it goes. You need people to step up that aren't taking up 35% of your cap, and you need to be able to develop them in house because Toronto for basketball, is not a huge free agent destination, just like most Canadian cities aren't in hockey. It's the same thing, right? Like a lot of guys don't want to play in Canada. So your avenue to making a team that is actually good is drafting. That's just how it goes. You're muted, just so you know.
Damn, I did not know. I
There
had
you
no
go.
clue.
I
Thank you.
got you. Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, like you said about free agency, that's true. And then based on the circumstances in the Eastern Conference and based on just generally like our organization's philosophy, we're not going to be at the top of very many drafts. Like I said about getting to the top of the draft in the East, you have to get like actually dog shit. And that's
Yup.
not the best thing to intentionally do. So
Nope.
we're always probably going to be working from the middle. And our avenue for getting better is the trade market and drafting. So you have to be great at both. And I think Masai's in a weird spot with trading where he's had um he's had a history that would suggest that he's great at it, and I think that that makes people look at him a certain way, and I think that that in turn makes trading a little bit harder. So now he's at a point where like um I might have to like I might be able to negotiate a great deal if I was a random person, but now
Yep.
people's ears are perking up because of a reputation that I have. So I might have to
Mm,
take a bad deal because that's the only deal I can get done. So he's worked himself
100%.
into a weird situation where all those things considered, drafting is just something we have to get right. So like we can sit here and endlessly talk about all the different little micro decisions there are to make with different guys' situations. Um, but ultimately, like if we don't figure the drafting stuff out, it's not going to work. Peter says, if you had to trade one tomorrow, OG or Siakam, which one and why? I'll let you get to this first because I
I
know
mean,
what
you
you're
you
going to
know
say.
my answer to
I
this.
know
I
what you're
mean,
going to say. Yeah.
bye Siakam. I love you, but bye. If I had to pick one, yeah, I'm trading Pascal.
Um, damn. So yeah, just I'm weighing it out in my head. If I had to trade one tomorrow, I'm at a point where I would basically prioritize asset management. So Siakam is the player who, if anything, his value goes down if we pay him, and now he's on a really big deal, and we're not going to trade him in the first year of it probably. So now you're looking at a 30-year-old on a really big deal, value goes down. Whereas OG is a player you could pay, his value in theory could go up. He's of a younger age. Um, in 2 years, he's a 28-year-old who could be very valuable to a contender, and you might have somebody in a situation where they're desperate and you might get a good deal. Siakam
Yep.
is a player where, if anything, that set of circumstances is right now, and it's
Yep.
probably not going to be in 2 to 3 years. So,
Agreed.
being that we're at a point where we don't have assets like that, if you look at our draft picks going forward, if you look at our young players, if you even just look at our top end talent, we don't have enough. So we need to make decisions with that in mind. And I think trading Siakam would, it doesn't necessarily guarantee that things are going to go great,
No.
but I think it's the better
Of
route.
the two, 100%, I agree. Ideally, you
Um,
don't trade either of them.
In a perfect world, if you can find a way to make it work, because at the end of the day, like, speaking of not having many assets, those are some of our assets. So if you trick one of them off and you trade Pascal for, again, the Atlanta compensation is like Jalen Johnson picks, and then take your pick of Hunter and DeJounte, there's a very good chance that you actually just decrease in your assets at the end of it.
Yeah,
So
it's like I said, to me, it's a lateral move at best. Like you're losing the best player in the trade and filling a need for us, sure, in the guard spot, but is he like that good of a guard that you are coming out ahead in making that swap, right? Like you're trading
yeah.
one of our strengths to fill one of our weaknesses essentially, but is that weakness being bolstered enough to justify losing out on one of our strengths? Is how I would look at it in that scenario.
And also, you got to say both of those players you aren't going to have the best markets right now. Because mind you, I answer that question because I have to trade one of the players. The reality
Yes.
is that from what we heard, a trade to Portland didn't happen because Siakam said, "I don't know that
Don't
I
want to
want to sign
resign.
an extension
Yeah.
there." So that made a trade not happen. That applies to OG as well. If a team is going to put a bunch of assets up for OG, they're going to want to know that he's going to resign. These are both players that could honestly, it's probably in their best interest to just say no to all of it. I want to hit the open market. I want to have all the power.
Yep.
So if these are players that are going to have depressed markets for that reason, the actual right answer, and like all things considered, is probably to resign them both and hope that what happens on the basketball court um, keeps their values high. The way I've talked about next season is I look at this year as a value repair season. I think we had a really bad year last year. A lot of people's value bottomed out. We need to
100%.
have a year that repairs everybody's value, and then we see what happens. So to call back to this comment where Peter said Toronto should just hold tight and see where they're at in January, that's exactly kind of what I'm going for. Hold
Yep.
tight, be as good as you can be, hope that you change the way people in the league look at your players, and then see where you can go from there. Apparently we've extended Gary Trent Jr. God knows if that's actually happened. If you can pay some of the other guys on our team,
He's 68 waiting for the live stream.
for real 100 days later. But yeah, like, it's just one of those things where if we can get a bunch of guys under contract and then they can look good on a basketball court together, now you're cooking a little bit. Now you can look at your pieces and say, hey, we have these guys under contract. They're playing well. We have a competitive team. By competitive, I mean in the playoffs and not the play in.
Yep.
So like 6
Yep.
seed, 5 seed, right?
Mhm.
Okay, we're there. We're a couple of jumps away from being at the top of the conference, like conceivably. So now we can look to be in that like advantageous build from the middle situation. But where we are right now is we're in the like shitty situation of we're not actually in the middle. We're closer to the bottom, but we're not in a situation where it's easy to get to the bottom. And like I said, getting to the bottom in the East, it just isn't something that I love the idea of. And for those of
No.
you who haven't checked the video out, I did a free agency. Was it a free agency video? No, it was a video about the Raptors' direction. And what I did in the video was I took the last 10 years of the Eastern Conference. I looked at the teams that put themselves in the top 5 of the lottery, not the draft, because you don't control where you're in the draft. You control where you're at in the lottery. What Eastern Conference teams managed to be in the top 5 of the lottery? Then I track their wins for the next 4 years. So the thinking there is, how many games do you win while that player you draft is on their rookie deal of 4 years? Go back to that video. Most teams were still in the 30s for a 4-year average of regular season wins. These teams, not only are they not good, they're still bad, right? If you can't crack
Yeah.
40 wins in the East, you are a bad basketball team. So these teams in the last 10 years, which is like the modern CBA, because prior to 10 years, basketball was just a little bit different financially,
Yeah.
right? In those relevant years of looking at things, we were just teams were just bad. Teams were bad that found themselves at the top of the lottery. So with that being the case, like, you want to luck up and win the lottery from not as low of a situation, or like you want something else to happen. But being in that circumstance, it was bad for basically all the teams. And like, just to point out, the exceptions to the rule were Cleveland, because they got LeBron, and that's not a fucking sustainable plan.
Yeah, no shit. Yeah, like one
Philadelphia,
of the goats, if not the goat. Yeah,
yes,
like okay, you're gonna be good.
Philadelphia got Joel Embiid. Milwaukee got Giannis, right? You basically, like, I think those are the 3 teams. There's 3 players that changed the fortunes of the teams that were in the bottom of the East. You have to
All
hope to get one of those
generational
yes,
players at their positions, right?
players that
Like
are on track to be Hall of Famers, that if it went
exactly.
wrong, it's because of some other shit, not their ability, right?
Yep.
Those are the players you have to hope to get in that circumstance. Anything outside of that, you stay at the bottom. So that's not something I ever want to do.
No.
Part of the reason I made this channel is because I actually think there's a lot of conversation to be had about what the other routes are like, right? I think building from the middle is a way more intricate thing, and there's so much more like compelling conversation to have than, hey guys, let's trade all our assets away, be really bad, and just do mock drafts for 3 months like that.
Yeah.
I don't think that's
As an
fun, and it
Oilers
doesn't
fan,
work.
I watched my favorite team do nothing but lose for a decade. It's not fun. I would rather be like a middling team that's always pushing to get better, that's still going to win some games, have some entertaining players to watch, than just sell everything, tank hard. Like I know so many people are like championship or bust. There is like merit
Hold on.
in
Can you just like go for a good like minute? My mouth is so dry. I need some
yeah,
water.
go hard.
Keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. No, just like the way I look at it, it's I would rather watch my team develop, win games, and try and compete than just absolutely tank. Unless the situation is bleak, like completely bleak. Like the people who want the Raptors to blow it up, sell everything, trade everyone away, and just tank for lottery picks. I don't know. It feels God, this is a hot take. It feels like almost entitled, in a sense, because like if you've been a fan of a team that has lost a lot, you know what it's like to watch a shitty team, and it's not fun, especially when it's your favorite team. Like it's fun to meme on Reddit, on like the fucking NBA subreddit or whatever, right? Like it's fun to talk shit about those teams and the way that those things have gone. Um, but there is something to be said. There is merit in being a team that is consistently at least making playoffs. Like, yeah, first round exits are not fun. You're never going to have like a high draft pick, but you are generally speaking going to be banking on your team developing, or at least players getting to a point where they're actually going to be able to make a meaningful contribution. Like not every player is going to reach their max potential in 2, 3, 4 years. Like sometimes it happens later, and you see it happen pretty consistently in the NBA, where sometimes teams will just sneak up out of nowhere and you're like, wait, a lot of the guys on that team have been there for a decent amount of time, right? Like it there's a process to it. And it's the same thing if you've ever played like actual competitive sports too, right? Like a lot of the time the competitive spirit in the room, whether you're on a losing team or not, like no one likes losing. That like no one likes fucking losing. No one wants to watch a losing team. No one wants to be on the losing team. It's just not fun, in my opinion. I know, like hot take. I'm sure there's a lot
take
of
fun aside, like take fun out of it for a second, right? I think that there's a thing to be said about young players that develop in the context of losing teams. Like when a team is dysfunctional to a point where they can't play a good brand of a sport, and that's the situation a player comes up in, I think that is something that sets a standard for that player of like how to do things. And then they get to like, let's say their late 20s and they're put in winning circumstances. And not to say they're playing a different sport, but they're kind of playing a different sport now, right? The
Yep.
things you do are different. The decisions you make are different. The stakes of things are higher. It's just a completely different circumstance. So to bring it back to the Raptors real quick, like I like the fact that Scotty Barnes is developing as a player in the context of a team that's trying to win games.
Yep.
I think if there's a chance that we're a pretty good team in 2-3 years, he's better for it as opposed to
100%.
having developed on a really bad team. Because especially a player like him, he has like I look at his game, right? He has like a flair for trying like a no look pass that you probably shouldn't try. And like this is a guy that when he gets on a fast break, he turns around and looks at the closest
Yeah, that's
defender
true.
to him before dunking it. This is a guy I think who would develop some wild habits if we were a bad team, right? And of course,
That's
that's
true.
just like not based in anything that's really real. But I just like look at it and
Sure.
I'm like, I'm glad that there's people that are trying to like make him learn basketball the right way while he's learning, while he's 21 and 22. Like it's like human beings have foundational years for their development as people. I think basketball players have foundational years for their development as basketball players. So I think that's another
Lu-
side of it. Like if you look at I talk about it a lot where I think there's players that get shoved into being a number one option because they're just drafted to a shit team and
Yep.
a team just doesn't have a number one option. So they have to be one out of circumstance. But had that player been actually drafted to like a competent team, a team that's decent, they wouldn't actually ever be in that circumstance out of merit because they don't deserve it. So they get pushed into this situation where they have to be a number one. And now all they know is how to be a player on the ball. So now they get put into circumstances where you're not good enough to warrant being on the ball because you're not actually good enough. So now you have to
Yep.
play off the ball because you're trying to win games now. And now you don't know anything about this life. And of course, I'm like you can't lump everybody together. People are different, but most players I think fail in that
100%.
circumstance.
No, I
Uh,
agree. And there's like examples of it in the NBA right now. Wiggins, right, going to Golden State is like the perfect example of a player who was forced to be a number one option that developed in a certain way when he was on the Timberwolves, didn't
how old
excel
is
at
he?
it. Wiggins, I don't know how old he is now. I'll
I'm gonna
check
look
real
that up right
quick.
now, but go ahead.
But then he gets shipped to Golden State and is told, "Hey, man, we know what you can do. We like what you can do, but we're going to ask you to do a little bit less than what you've been asked to do in other places. But we want you to do the specific thing that we're asking of you really, really well. We want you to start defending. We want you to like actually take the time to be a good defender, to be an on-ball pest. And when we get you looks, we want you to hit them." And he said, "You know what? Cool. I went from being the guy in Minnesota and being on a team that won 20 games every year to winning a championship, playing elite at what they asked him to do." Like I don't know if you watched the finals when Golden State won with Wiggins on their team. Like
Oh
he was
yeah. We had
amazing.
to watch Boston lose. We had to watch
Yeah,
Boston lose.
he was amazing. And that, like to me, that's like the perfect example of what you just described, right? A guy who was forced to be a number one option on a team
Yeah.
who could do it okay. He wasn't efficient, but he
Yeah.
had the talent to do it. But you were on a shit team, and you're watching a shit team with a guy who they wanted him to be that guy, and he
Yeah.
gets sent to Golden State, and look what happens. Like
So he's
he's asked
28 now. Yeah, he's 28
exactly.
now. He would have been like 25 when he got traded to the Warriors. And the thing is, he probably would have been like 23 when Jimmy Butler entered the Wolves and just turned that whole organization upside down, Loki. So like the thing is like Jimmy Butler entered his life at an early point in his career, and then the Warriors entered his life, and I think those are probably circumstances that changed things for him. At an early enough stage where like things were still possible because the role that he played on Golden State had no overlap with the role that he played when he first got to Minnesota. This was a
No.
guy that was like number one option, taking all the shots he wants, missing most of them. And just like again, like was categorized as a bust. And then he had 1 year, I think in his third or fourth year, that warranted $100 million extension. But then
Yep.
that like things turned down again. Like the reality is he always should have been a role player. That's just always what his game necessitated. Part of the reason things I think went a certain way was because like I don't know if you're familiar, but when he was in high school in Vaughan, Ontario, out here, people were calling him like Canadian LeBron, right? Like,
Wasn't
but
Maple
that's
Jordan? Wasn't that his nickname?
Maple Jordan was a nickname, but
Ma-
also like in high school, because if you think about how he's playing in a Canadian high school with a really low level of competition, with his level of
yeah,
athleticism and size, he's just
he's a
running up the court
slaughter.
and dunking on people, right?
Yep.
So like that's something that, oh my God, that stands out. He has the athleticism, he has the frame, and he's dominating the game, and that really put him in a box, I think. And then he went to Kansas, and ultimately was good enough at Kansas to get drafted high. I mean, get drafted first overall. But part of
Yeah.
the reason he went first overall is because Joel Embiid was hurt, and Joel Embiid was on that same team, and Joel Embiid was clearly the elite talent on that team.
Yep.
But circumstances happened to where Jabari Parker is the other player. He
Oh my
ultimately
god,
he
that is
ultimately
such a
was a
throwback.
better, yeah, for
Yeah,
real.
he was
He
so
ultimately
good for like a year, and then I don't know what happened to that man. Like it was.
weight issues, back issues, and basketball moving past him, I think is the Jabari Parker story.
Yeah, checks out.
It happens. No, it happens.
Yeah,
There's like a kind of basketball player that just basketball moved past them, and I think he was one of them. So,
one of those. Yeah, I could see it.
but that's the thing. Like sometimes in people's careers, their role gets defined, and I think teams that are really really bad stop that process from happening, because the game is going to show you what your role is. You're going to live and die, like you're going to live and die with what happens on the court, but like a smart player is going to understand what their capabilities are, and learn what their game should be and what they can actually do on a basketball court in the context of winning basketball. That's
Yeah.
what's going
Well,
to carry you throughout your career. If you don't understand your role, you're going to flame out. But if you're on a bad team that can literally just let you do what you want, that's never going to happen.
yeah. No, I legitimately think he's like one of the perfect examples for this type of scenario because he went to Golden State and they like I don't want to say they humbled him, but like that Steph and Clay are gonna be like, listen, this is our team. This is what we need from you. If you do
You
that,
didn't
we're gonna
even
win.
mention Draymond Green, which is
Yeah.
funny, but
Like
you did. Like,
I mean, I love Steph and Clay. I think like they run that team to me. Like Draymond is a mouthpiece and he's loud, but I don't think he's
I
running that
forget who
team.
said this. I forget who said this, but somebody was talking about the Warriors and they were saying like, basically when Steph gets in his feelings, Draymond's there to basically be the voice of it. You know, like Steph's passive aggressiveness turns
Yeah.
into Draymond's aggressiveness. And
Draymond's
that's
the
just,
mouthpiece.
yeah, it's just a perfect relationship in that regard. But at the end of the day, we're talking about a guy who punched a guy to Washington. That's crazy.
That's true.
But that happened.
Yeah. Man needs to breathe a little bit, I
Yes.
think, you know?
Yes. I think another good example of this is Jamal Murray, because I think had he, like, I look
Yep.
at it, if Jamal Murray was drafted into Kemba Walker's circumstances, he would have only learned how to be a player on the ball, and he would have been good enough to warrant a lot of shots. He would have got a lot of those shots, and I think his game would have been a lot more narrow than it is now. Because at that point, right, what incentive does a coach have to tell you, hey, Jamal, get the ball out of your hands,
You need to play this
give it to
way.
Cody Zeller. Give the ball to Cody Zeller, Jamal.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
And I think he would honestly, I think he'd have a career that's closer to Kemba Walker had he been drafted into those circumstances. But he was drafted to a team that then drafted MVP caliber player, and I think that happening so early was a very good thing for his career. And I think he's grown into what I think is a high level second option.
Oh,
And he's found
100%. Yeah.
something. He's found something in that role. So, but again, like basketball circumstances had to dictate that.
Yep.
So I don't believe in
Well,
getting in the way of that. That's my like main takeaway about tanking and bad teams.
yeah. Well, again, I watched my favorite team lose for a decade. It's not fun. I know fun is just, a feeling, whatever, but I would rather be a team that gets bounced in the first round. Like, as long as you're competing, growing, building, and there is like a precedent being set there that like we don't want to just be a treadmill team that gets to the first round every year and gets bounced. Like, if the aspiration is to push forward and to always be working towards more, I want that. Give me that every single time versus sell the farm, sell everything, and tank. Like,
Yeah.
that's just me though.
Yeah. I also think like a part of the negative connotation of being a middling team is factors that are outside of inherently being a middling team. So what I mean is like there's a lot of teams in sports whose owners don't care about anything other than revenue. So like, go be an 8 seed, go get some playoff revenue. Nothing else matters.
Yep.
Actually, convenient enough when it's time to really start paying people, ship them off for cheap talent, draft picks, and the cycle continues. Like,
Yep.
that's more a reflection of ownership, not the circumstance itself, right?
It's just a
So
treadmill of printing money for the owner, right? Like they don't really
exactly.
give a
So
shit.
yeah, if you're middling in that context, then yeah, of course, that sucks. You don't want to be
Yeah.
in that circumstance. And like Peter's saying, this is exactly what the
Used
Suns
to be the
were
Suns.
with
Yeah.
their previous owner, because old ladies were yelling at him in town halls and shit. Like, that was the state of the team prior to an ownership change that's brought about a very different attitude towards winning. Like, um, the
Well,
Bradley
and you'll
Beal
never
trade, I
have
think, is so fascinating just because of how aggressive it is. It's just like it or not, it's pure aggression of just like, hey,
Oh yeah.
we're gonna have more buckets than everybody. We'll
Full
figure the
send.
other shit out, but we're gonna have more buckets than you. Everything
Yep.
else can be talked about, but buckets is a dead debate. It's over.
Yep. No, I love that they're just full sending. Like I love it. I don't think they're doing it in a great way, but you cannot deny that they've got some punch. They've got some firepower on that team now, and it's gonna be entertaining to watch at like the very least. Like it's gonna be wild watching Suns games.
Oh, especially in that conference too, because I think there's a lot of matchups that, even like, if the Suns are like a 1 seed or a 2 seed, the 7-8 team that they're playing in the first round, like, they'll probably steamroll them, but it'll probably be a decent team unless they
Yeah.
run into Minnesota. Like, Minnesota is the telltale. You want that team in the playoffs because they just don't know what they're doing, and they have
Yep.
Rudy Gobert. So aside from that team, like, if you run into OKC, even, like, yeah, they're gonna beat OKC, but it's gonna be a fun series.
Hell yeah.
Um,
I'll watch it. I'll watch SGA pop off, even if he's losing. It'll be fun to
Oh,
watch.
what's happening? As soon as the Raptors season ends, this channel is becoming SGA Watch. For those who don't know, like, Toronto Hoop Talk is Toronto Hoop Talk. It's not Raptors Hoop Talk. So this is very much just like a basketball community I'm trying to build based on like my interest in basketball. But a part of that is Team Canada, because they're actually decent. So when the
Yeah.
FIBA World Cup is happening, I'm going to be doing FIBA World Cup content in about a month and a half. So we're going to do a lot of Team Canada stuff.
It's actually exciting to be a Canadian with basketball right now. Like we've got
Yeah,
some
bro,
actually good
we have a wave of
players.
hella talent.
I know, it's fucking amazing. I love it.
Jez says, I hope it can be us. I actually think the Thunder are going to make the playoffs. Like, play in for sure, but I think they'll be in the play in and actually get it done. On Sarcasm City, actually, I think me, Peter, and Jez were talking about, during the draft, we're talking about teams in the West making it. And I think Peter threw out the Thunder as a dark horse to be in the top 6. And that wasn't even like that crazy to me. Like, I thought that was cool. Amongst other dark horses, because there's an obvious top 6. I don't think really any other dark horses sound as probable as the Thunder. I think the big thing with the Thunder is that people forget how aggressively they tried to lose games at the end of a bunch of seasons in recent history, and they didn't have Chet, and yeah, they just have a bunch of talent. Like, yo, have you seen that they're playing a lot of their players in summer league right now? It's they're out here bullying teams because they're
Mm-hmm.
actually kind of just playing their NBA team minus SGA.
Yep.
I don't know who they
It's
played
kind
yesterday,
of mean. It's
but
been kind of
it's
mean.
not fair.
No, but
Yep,
I'm loving watching it though.
this is a
48
fact.
wins. I can see it.
This
They
is a
have a
fact.
lot of talent on that team. Chet rim protection just wow. Yes. No, it was something to see yesterday. I don't know.
Oh, but taking the team they have and the amount of picks they have, and like, again, like, that's not it's not like you just add the two things together and get a great team or whatever. But like, just to see how they manage these picks going forward is going to be fun, I think. They made the trade with Denver recently to basically just like push some of their present picks into like 2029 and 2030, and I think they'll probably have to do that quite a bit more. But that's such a great way to like cycle your draft assets, because I think other teams would basically say, screw it, let's put all the picks together. So
Yep.
let's take 5 picks and turn them into a player, or let's take a bunch of picks and trade up in the draft. But they're not forcing the issue. Like, they're um they're willing to move their picks into the future, keep hold of the assets, and I guess just see how the talent develops. But can you imagine a situation where they just push their picks into the future? This core ends up being good, and then they're sitting in the 6th seed with all those picks.
Yep.
Like, it's good.
They'll be an interesting team at the deadline, depending at where they're at. Like, they could potentially be one of those teams that if they do decide, like, we're going for it, they could make some moves. They could try to make some moves.
They can bully any team in a negotiation. So like,
Yeah.
it's not going to happen now because Dame is too early. But like, let's say another Dame happens. It could be, I don't know, Joel Embiid or Luka Doncic or I don't know, somebody like that, right? And then like they
Yep.
say, hey, I want to go to Brooklyn or I don't know, a California team
Miami.
or a
Only
Texas
Miami.
team.
Sorry.
One of the Yeah, see, I'm just assuming they get Dame and like they have a bunch of 33-year-olds and nothing in the future, right? So let's say that happens. One of those players does that. Then OKC says, yes, so what? We're going to double whatever that team's offer is, and we're going to force that team to reject it. I think one of those teams would say, like, screw it. I think Philly, like, if things go wrong with this core, which is going to happen, right? And Joel Embiid's like, I want to go to Miami. Man, that owner's going to be like, screw it. OKC is going to give us a whole rebuild for this player.
Thunder getting Paul George next offseason, full circle. I'd like to see it for the memes, just for the memes alone.
See, if I was Paul George too, I would say, screw it. I'm doing the most shameless homecoming, like presentation of this move, despite the fact that I just am literally leaving LA. I'm going to leave home and do a homecoming campaign.
Make like a whole like mini docu-series about his homecoming to OKC. Yeah.
He has to buy the house that he was living in before, and like that's one episode, right? And then he's driving through like some farmland. That's another episode, just
like full page ads in the no, just a whole newspaper. He buys the entire every page on the newspaper to talk about how happy he is to be back.
You know how players like buy a thank you thing in newspapers when they leave? Like if he did go to that same newspaper, get an I'm back Michael Jordan style. Yeah, no, Paul George could make it fun. Paul George could make it fun.
It won't happen, but it would be hilarious. It would be so goddamn funny.
If they ship Paul George somewhere, where do they ship Kawhi? What happens to Kawhi? Does he just stick around? He's like, look, I'm playing Kawhi even games, and you're still gonna pay me.
Bro, he could barely play last season. Like I'm worried that we're not gonna see him ever at like his peak again for more than like 3 games at a time. It's sad. Like it's actually sad to watch because he's one of the best players in the league, like hands down. If you love defensive basketball, like there's no one better to watch than Kawhi. And the sad thing is you never get to watch him because he never plays.
Yeah, I mean, like it's weird because do you remember the trade offer that OKC made to Toronto to get Paul George so that we could re-sign Kawhi? Do you remember that deal?
It was ludicrous, wasn't it? This is ringing a bell. It was insane.
I'm gonna look it up and see if I can find it and put it on stream.
Yeah. Now that you're talking about this, it was so dumb. Oh my god!
I think it was intentionally like that because ultimately, right, what they were getting was more cap relief with taking on Russell Westbrook's contract, which at that point, what did they flip Russell Westbrook for? Chris Paul?
Yes.
Yeah, so like Russ wasn't even like an asset like that, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I found it.
Yeah, it was like Lowry. It was everything, man. They wanted our whole team, and they wanted us to take Westbrook too. Yeah, it was not good. I remember it's coming back to me now. CP3 in a pick.
Let's get it up here.
Paul George is from Palmdale. He's used to living in the boonies.
Yeah, we have our California insider in Peter.
Yeah, perfect.
Before sending Paul George to the Clippers in a shocking deal, the Thunder reportedly held talks with the Raptors focused on George and Russell Westbrook for a package centered around Pascal Siakam. They asked for Pascal Siakam, Fred VanVleet, and 4 unprotected firsts
as a starting point
for Paul George and Russ at that point. So mind you, this would have left us with basically Kyle Lowry, Russell Westbrook, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Marc Gasol, Serge Ibaka, and nothing.
Nothing.
And Norman Powell. So mind you, right? Russ is going to do Russ things during that era, whatever
Mhm.
version of Russ that was. I think that basketball highlight is probably a copyright thing. So I'm going to get that right the hell off the screen. Um, so yeah, there's that. And Kawhi's getting hurt. Paul George is getting hurt because they both gotten hurt in the last little bit. That team would have been diabolical. It would have been Russ and Kyle
Yup.
Lowry beefing on the basketball court.
We would have just had a war every
Yeah.
game.
All our
amongst
picks are going to
our
OKC.
starters.
All our picks
Yeah.
are going to OKC as well.
No, I remember that. I remember laughing my ass off when I saw that. Where they're like, "That's the starting point. That's just where it starts." It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, you have fun with that. No, no, thank you. Bye, Kawhi. Love you. Got the championship for us. It's been swell.
For real. I'm definitely wrapping up at this point. We're 3 hours in.
Yep.
This was cool though. I'm gonna find a
That
bunch
was
of
a
ways to
perfect
chop up
segue.
this live stream, by the way. I'm
Yeah,
gonna
go
chop it
hard.
up into like 4 different smaller videos, put that on YouTube, let that cook for the people that don't like 3-hour live streams. Shout out to Peter and Jess for rocking with us, not Raptors fans, but we're here just to kick it. I appreciate that. 12 people still watching live. Make sure you support me and the channels that I'm affiliated with. So go to Sarcasm City, subscribe, like the videos. Go to Basketball Rewind, which is Kenyon's channel, who was on the stream before. Sub to his channel, like his videos. Definitely, if you're here and you're not sub to my channel, I don't know why you watched 3 hours but don't want to sub to my channel. It's a question you can answer on your own time. But sub to the channel, like the video, leave comments. These are engagements that help grow the channel. I've been doing this for like 5 days now consistently, and it's been fun. So rock with us. Lots more content coming up, and I'll see you guys around.